Every analyst, general, and policymaker in Washington and Beijing points to the exact same geopolitical flashpoint. They look at a single island that manufactures the overwhelming majority of the world's most advanced semiconductors. The standard argument dictates that losing Taiwan means an immediate collapse of the global economy. While this perspective is factually grounded, it misses a deeper layer of the supply chain. Taiwan manufactures today's most advanced chips, but a quiet European nation builds the machines that make tomorrow's chips possible. In the quiet Dutch town of Veldhoven, a single corporation commands the future of the entire global digital infrastructure. Advanced Semiconductor Materials Lithography, commonly known as ASML, holds an absolute 100% monopoly on extreme ultraviolet lithography systems. No commercial competitor exists anywhere else on Earth, as legacy rivals like Nikon and Canon abandoned this pursuit decades ago. Without these specific machines, foundries cannot produce a single microchip below the 7-nanometer threshold. Every advanced technology sector depends entirely on the operational output of this single European company. Engineering an extreme ultraviolet lithography machine requires manipulating physical laws at an almost impossible scale. For decades, the industry relied on deep ultraviolet light with a wavelength of 193 nanometers to etch silicon wafers. To shrink circuits to the single-digit nanometer scale, engineers required an extreme ultraviolet wavelength of 13.5 nanometers. This elusive light is generated by a high-power carbon dioxide laser from the German firm Trumpf that pulverizes 50,000 droplets of molten tin per second inside a vacuum. The resulting plasma reaches temperatures 40 times hotter than the surface of the sun, emitting light that is then guided by atomic flat Zeiss mirrors. The physical scale of these advanced lithography systems is just as staggering as the underlying quantum physics. A standard low-NA extreme ultraviolet system carries a price tag of approximately $200 to $300 million, while the newer high-NA EUV systems cost around $380 to $400 million per unit. The completed apparatus weighs roughly 150 to 200 tons depending on the generation. Shipping a standard unit demands packing the specialized components into about 40 massive freight containers distributed across 3 dedicated Boeing 747 aircraft. The newer high-NA systems are significantly larger and more complex, often requiring up to 250 crates and as many as 7 Boeing 747s, making global transportation and facility installation far more demanding. Because these complex machines are incredibly rare and difficult to assemble, their global deployment is highly concentrated. Recent industrial data from late 2025 indicates TSMC in Taiwan operates roughly 55 to 60% of the global installed base of EUV systems, with some estimates placing it just over half of all units ever shipped. South Korea, primarily Samsung, holds most of the remainder, while the United States and other players trail significantly behind. This extreme concentration means that the foundational computing power of the world remains locked within a narrow geographical footprint in East Asia. Exact figures vary by source and quarter, but all public estimates agree TSMC controls an absolute majority of global EUV capacity. Washington recognized the immense strategic leverage of this Dutch industrial monopoly long before the current artificial intelligence boom. American diplomats began pressuring the Dutch government as early as 2018 to restrict the transfer of this hardware to strategic adversaries. The Netherlands ultimately complied with these national security requests by blocking ASML from exporting any extreme ultraviolet systems to mainland Chinese buyers in 2019. This coordinated embargo was later expanded to encompass advanced versions of older deep ultraviolet lithography equipment. This ongoing policy represents one of the most successful technological containment strategies executed in modern history. Beijing is fully aware of this severe vulnerability and has launched an unprecedented campaign for total technological self-sufficiency. The Chinese government has channeled over $150 billion into domestic semiconductor initiatives to replicate Western lithography capabilities. While Chinese state scientists have successfully built functional laboratory prototypes, these systems are not ready for high-volume commercial manufacturing. Leading financial institutions estimate that China's independent lithography technology remains significantly behind the Western frontier. Replicating a global network of 800 specialized component suppliers has proven to be a barrier that money alone cannot instantly breach. The existence of this absolute Dutch monopoly was not an accident of history, but the result of massive corporate foresight. In 2012, Intel executed a historic agreement by investing over $4 billion into ASML to fund early extreme ultraviolet research. This massive capital injection was quickly followed by similar co-investment programs from Samsung and TSMC. These tech giants deliberately financed a decade of highly risky physics experiments that smaller competitors could not afford. This collaborative financial foundation created a natural monopoly that cannot be easily replicated from scratch by any single state actor. The global obsession with advanced nodes is driven by a fundamental shift in the requirements of modern military hardware. Next-generation combat systems rely entirely on high-density semiconductors to maintain a decisive tactical edge. For example, the sophisticated radar arrays and sensor fusion suites of the F-35 Lightning II require processors that demand extreme precision to manufacture. Advanced kinetic weapons, autonomous drone swarms, and hypersonic guidance systems similarly require the computing power derived from these advanced nodes. Without access to this cutting-edge silicon, a military is forced to deploy obsolete hardware against rapidly evolving electronic threats. The real-world limits of manufacturing advanced chips without extreme ultraviolet technology became perfectly clear during recent consumer releases. Chinese technology giant Huawei surprised global analysts by launching a smartphone powered by a domestic 7-nanometer processor. This chip was manufactured by utilizing older deep ultraviolet systems through an engineering process known as multi-patterning. While this achievement proved that domestic design innovation is possible, the production method suffered from low commercial yields and exorbitant manufacturing costs. The breakthrough demonstrated that without true extreme ultraviolet hardware, scaling down to smaller nodes remains economically unviable. A common geopolitical nightmare assumes that a successful military campaign in East Asia would hand a massive technological prize to the captor. If an adversary were to physically seize the extreme ultraviolet machines currently installed in Taiwan, the global balance of power would seemingly flip overnight. However, this scenario overlooks the reality that these systems cannot function as isolated pieces of hardware. Every machine requires constant software updates, specialized spare parts, and precise recalibration provided exclusively by engineers from Veldhoven. Without this ongoing relationship with ASML, these multi-million-dollar systems become completely useless within a matter of months. To understand the true nature of the microchip war, analysts must separate the immediate factory floor from the foundational toolmaker. If a conflict destroys the foundries in Taiwan, the global production of advanced semiconductors halts immediately. If ASML were to disappear, the global development of all future generations of computing power ceases forever. Taiwan represents the ultimate bottleneck of physical production, while the Netherlands represents the absolute bottleneck of technological innovation. This crucial distinction dictates how global superpowers distribute their diplomatic and defensive capital across the globe. While popular media focuses on naval maneuvers in the Pacific, defense planners look closely at different vulnerabilities in Western Europe. The most realistic threat to the semiconductor supply chain is not a conventional military invasion of the Netherlands. Instead, geopolitical strategists worry about cyber sabotage, industrial espionage, supply chain disruptions, and intense political coercion directed at the Dutch tech sector. Because ASML is the crown jewel of the Western technological order, any hostile disruption targeting Veldhoven would trigger an immediate and severe response from Washington. The preservation of this technological barrier remains a vital national security interest. Modern civilization has built its entire digital and military future upon an incredibly narrow and fragile industrial foundation. A single corporation operating out of a small European town holds the literal keys to artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and advanced warfare. While Taiwan serves as the visible public face of this semiconductor dependency, the Netherlands remains the true heart of the ecosystem. The global balance of power no longer depends solely on traditional nuclear deterrence. Ultimately, global hegemony will be decided by the exclusive ability to draw circuits just a few atoms wide.